Alrighty, friends, welcome back to our last video when we're considering populations of humanity. And what would talking about human populations be if we didn't talk about the potential overpopulation? So, this is an argument basically that we already have enough humans. So, what's the deal? And also, this could be another sensitive topic, perhaps. I don't want anyone to ever feel guilty for having children if that's your choice. I want you to know it's not anything that I'm like speaking badly of or anything like that. But we just have to look at the basics and really consider whether or not we are indeed overpopulated or not. So, is the United States overpopulated? Overpopulation is defined as more people living in an area than its natural and human resources can support. And, things to consider, why can't the resources support that population? But, things like not every place can actually provide all the services that a place needs. So, for example, think about countries that need to import a lot of resources. If anyone here has ever been to Iceland, for example, they have to import pretty much everything. Like you can't really farm a whole lot on that island. The best thing you have going for you is you are geothermal. That's about it. I shouldn't say about it, but I mean it's pretty wild, right? So the resources of a particular region need to be able to support that population. So there's two different types of overpopulation here. You have people overpopulation. So that's also called Malthusian overpopulation or consumption overpopulation. So again, kind of going back to comparing with India, I would probably argue that India is at a people overpopulation, right? You're trying to, shove in like over 1 billion people into a country as small as India. And so it can be potentially people overpopulation. Whereas, and this is an issue in many other countries, right? Especially ones that are developing, generally not ones that are developed, but ones that are developing. And developed nations, however, like if you were to say the United States, we actually suffer from consumption overpopulation, right? So we have plenty of space. The United States is gigantic, especially over here in the West, right? Like it's not nearly as populated here, West Coast. So those are things to really to consider. But we consume a lot here in the United States, right? So what do you think would happen as less developed countries become more developed and then increase their resource use? So just lots of things to really to think about, to consider, to hypothesize about, and things like that. In that same vein, the last thing to consider here for our content for this week, I know it's a lot of content, but you've done it, it's all right, is something called carrying capacity. So this is where we look at the population size that an area can support for the long term, right? For the long term. So this depends, again, on resource availability and the per capita resource by the population. And this concept can be used regionally or globally. So if everyone on planet Earth used really, really low amounts of resources, then our carrying capacity would be really high, right? If we were not taking, consuming, buying, then, we could live, thrive, and survive for a while with a large carrying capacity. But if everyone uses a lot of resources, then the carrying capacity would be low. So these are things to consider as well. I think I've said consider 20 million times throughout these videos, so apologies. But, what would you think would be the acceptable quality of life? If we lessened our consumption, We could, of course, increase our carrying capacity, but at what cost, right? So should we all have the same standard of living? Should we all, everyone in the world, live as an average U.S. citizen? Can think about how much you consume on a daily basis, and should everybody in the world, should all 8 billion people in this world, consume as much as you do? Notably, this is not possible currently, right? We need several more Earths in order for us to consume as much as the average American. I mean, like, I think about how much I consume, right? And you want to think of more than just food, but how many clothes do you buy? How much do you eat? Where do you get your food resources from? Where do you get your other resources? Actually, one of your assignments this week is to look at your ecological footprint, and kind of considering how many Earths you would need to have in order to continue on the path that you may or may not be going down. So kind of interesting, right? But also we need to consider what happens as technology improves and increases and we can become less wasteful. It's really, really something that's really interesting, I think, to think about. Especially now, right, when our technologies are indeed improving, we are figuring out different ways to dispose of our waste and to recycle our waste in different ways and different methods. I just watched the movie Dune, and so they have those suits, right, that like recycle all of their water. If we end up getting into a situation where, we'll need to conserve our water in a more like rapid way like that, could we actually develop that technology? So that's where also I think watching sci-fi movies or reading sci-fi books or comics or whatever is really fascinating, where you can be like, oh, this is like how we could maybe go on about going forth if we needed to. So lots of things, kind of a heavy week, right? So lots of content. So do be sure to make sure you've watched everything fully. You've read the module all the way through, and with that have been able to then complete your assignments for this week. Lots of stuff. So thank you again so much for your time, attention, and participation, whether it be single participation or if you're watching this with a group. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for watching.